Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the Guest Life Podcast, episode 20. We're talking marketing and business development with Kristine Leadbetter from the Women's Network. A little bit about the Guest Life Podcast, guys. We're now on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, this is a podcast to give back to the younger generation in the community, talking about some local talent as well as community leaders making a difference, making an impact. We're so happy to have Kristine here.
Thanks so much, Dan. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure. Little bit of background on Kristine. She is the founder and director of the Women's Network. She is also the TV host and producer of Leadbetter with Kristine. Kristine has over 15 years of experience specializing in marketing, communications, relationship, and business development. If you want to talk about someone that doesn't have a couple moments to spare, she's sitting right here. So we're really happy to have her on board, share a couple of her stories today, and just showcase some of, how to get started in an industry, especially being female and being an entrepreneur and just pretty much not saying no to anything.
That is key. Yes. Always be saying yes, which is contrary to, good work-life balance, but
I always say work-life balance doesn't really exist if you want to excel in anything.
Absolutely. I would agree.
So thanks so much, Kristine, for being on.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
So we're going to get started. Obviously, I've known Kristine for years, kind of seen her at Mac and been around every event she's always at. Now she's speaking. I'm watching her on TV. She's being interviewed. So it's an absolute pleasure for her to be on the show here at the Guest Life Podcast.
And I got to throw out, I know Dan from before he had this huge empire. So this is so cool too. So right back at you. You've done amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great. So the Women's Network, it is expanding rapidly. We'll get started there, and then we'll get into how it all became. So tell us a little bit about what is the Women's Network and how did it get started?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a long story, I guess, and it nothing happens overnight, right? The short end of it is, so this is something that I did over Christmas. It was a COVID Christmas, and I needed to keep myself busy, and I kept hearing from the pandemic that people feel very isolated. So I was like, what can I do? How can I help with this? I'm good at doing events. I'm good at building connections and relationships. So I put together the Women's Network. The first event is going to be March 5th. It's the Women's Professional Summit. The topic is, or the theme of the conference is Evolve, because that's what we're all kind of experiencing over the last year. And it's a full day conference with different topics, speakers. We got over 20 speakers. And then there's the element of networking. So I'm really, obviously, so my day job is I work at Gowling WLG as a business development and marketing manager. And my role is primarily about building relationships. So that's a huge component of the conference. So that's the short snippet of it. The long story of it is, this was something that I kind of experienced later in life. So I was not a super confident 20-something. I wasn't really sure where I was going in my career path. And I started this job at DeGroote, and I finally had some people that took an interest in me, and I had some wonderful bosses. So for all of you who manage people out there, do not undervalue your ability to influence those beneath you. So, and I want to shout out to Kelly Anderson, Mark Stewart, and the current dean, Len Waverman. They all sort of believed in me, and I had this idea to start a women's network. And they let me run with it. So I built the DeGroote Women's Professional Network, which is still going on, and I still highly recommend their events. And then I started a master's program in communications management from McMaster. And I used that program to do a little bit more digging. So I kept hearing about this glass ceiling that women experience. So I was like, I want to understand this more, and I want to understand what I can do to help, right? So it's seeing a problem and trying to identify how you can fit in there to make a difference. So my study essentially pointed out some barriers, both visible and invisible, to women achieving leadership roles, and then little things that we can do to help combat that. And one of those are actually women's networks. They're a great way for women to build confidence, to build their professional capital, which means their social capital, so their networking, their connections, access to resources, experiences, role models, mentor. All of these components really help excel you in your career. So from that's where the Women's Network came into play. I sat on it for 2 years just because I couldn't think of a great name, and I didn't have the confidence actually to move it forward. And I think it took the pandemic to be like, I kept waiting for someone else to do it. No one else was. So I'm like, all right, I got to step up and I got to get this done. and
amazing.
a heck of a lot of support. I've had so many people support me because there were so many days that I didn't know what I was doing or why I was like, if I could pull it off. And so, it's great to have a group of people that really you can rely on to pick you up.
It's amazing. And I think, self-doubt, we all kind of go and, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, feel the imposter syndrome, which is like, am I worthy of doing something like this?
Absolutely.
And I think it's amazing. And I find sometimes it's those big, moments in life that kind of push you towards those things that you never thought you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've definitely had those moments. I grew up kind of under a rock a little bit, didn't have a lot of experiences. And when I started that job at DeGroote, I got connected to professionals. So for those of you out there that, you don't know where to start building your network. I highly recommend that. Get exposed to new people, diversity, new ideas and perspectives. And that will sort of, filter through and you'll start to identify what you really relate to and what you don't, where you think you can have impact, where you think your skills excel. So that was huge for me is meeting all of these people. They inspired me. They were role models, people I could look up to. And then they would, share little bits of wisdom with me, which I was like a sponge and I absorbed it all. And a lot of this was like, it's above and beyond your 9 to 5. So anybody out there that just wants a 9 to 5, I mean, good for you. Know what makes you happy. But I think to really build and excel, you have to be willing to put in more and you'll get out more too, right? So like I would go to Toronto after work 2-3 nights a week if I want to go to an event, and then I would go and I would network and I would come with my business cards, in my purse, and I would just be like going everywhere. I would go up to the keynote speakers and talk to them, and then I would sell them on coming to the Women's Network to come speak. And inside I was so scared, but if I don't try, how will I know if I can't succeed? So
For sure. It's funny because I actually went to your event last year in Burlington.
Yeah,
at the women's event. And for me, it was a little intimidating because I was, one of the only male, attendees there.
Yeah.
And even from a male's perspective, to get out of your comfort zone and not to put female and male in such a different category. But I find at the beginning, it's so challenging when it comes to like, well, how do you build a network?
Yeah.
And how do you start, or how do you learn about that? And I was pushed at a younger age to kind of go, ask the question, right? Whether it's in business and you're talking about, getting two accountants' opinions, or, getting another, banking meeting, or getting something set up, right? So a lot of people, how do you find kind of making that first step in? Is it just going? Is it finding a friend, like, having a friend?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. So first of all, yes, get up and go. There's a million excuses to not to go to an event. If we're talking about an event, for example, you're tired, you've got other stuff going on, you're hungry, you don't feel like getting dressed up, whatever. Mm-hmm. If you go, I promise you something good will happen. You will meet at least one person or have one good conversation or experience that made it worth your while. Every single time, I don't want to go and then I end up going. It's always worked out. Then, at an event, if you're there and you don't know how to work a room, like that's okay. That comes with time. You're just trying to find one person. So again, scale the bar right down. You're looking for one connection. And if you do that, next time you can continue to build on that. In terms of building your network, I mean, you might already have one more than you realize. You've got classmates, you've got colleagues, you've got family. And so maybe you just start there and ask them, hey, like, who do you think I should meet with? I want to learn more about X. Or I'm looking to meet someone who's doing great things in the field of X, right? And just start there. And you'd be surprised how often people are willing to give their time to talk to you. Like it's that mentor-mentee type thing. You're laughing over there. Did you not have the same experience?
No, it's like you're hitting it off to a T. Like it's, I find like as long as people, especially now I find in my role that I get a lot of people coming up to me, and I used to just give everybody all my time, mm-hmm. and now I do a quick check off. So I send them actually a little goal planning sheet. It's it take about half an hour to do, and I say like, you know what? Here's this sheet. Get it to me by Friday, and then we'll go through it. And it's incredible how many people don't go through it that I send it to, but the people that do, they will be forever a friend of mine, right? And it's not to put it on a pedestal, but there's no better reward than giving back to someone that uses your advice, good or bad, right? Like it's not that they want to be exactly like you, but taking advice or taking the right steps, there's no better gift than showing a mentor that you're taking the right steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was good advice for people who want to be mentors. You can protect your time for sure. And doing a little bit of homework up front always kind of, gets rid of folks that aren't maybe that serious.
Yeah.
And, as entrepreneurs, like your time is very limited. So it is the struggle of the balance for sure.
When I find one of the tools that I used, again, it's sometimes you can't unhear something, but it was, instead of saying I'm too busy for that, you say I don't feel like that's a priority.
Yep.
And as soon as you kind of change that conversation to yourself of saying like, oh, I'm too busy to go to that event, or saying that event's not a priority to me, it's the same aspect, but it's a lot harder to say that networking is not a priority to you than, oh, I'm too tired, or, oh, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
And I find that's a big, it's a big little internal battle.
Because that's essentially what you're picking, right? By saying no to this, you're turning down that opportunity. And while I think there's always new opportunities to be had, opportunities do come and go, right? You have missed an opportunity.
For sure.
So
it's funny when you talk about entrepreneurs, especially in the networking aspect, and creating a platform. How do you find people finding their interest in it? Do you find that people are very interested and they're excited to be involved, and or do you find a lot of people drop off?
Are you specifically talking about the women's network?
Yeah, within the women's network.
Yeah, I think this is something that a lot of women feel very passionate about. So I think that there is interest. Interest is still growing and building, and they like to stay connected. And some want to be more meaningfully connected, meaning they want to be part of an advisory committee, or they want to take on some kind of volunteer role, because it's something that's so personal, right? Like it's their career advancement. They care a lot about it, I would say. So I do think once you're connected, you're part of this group, you're part of a community.
Yeah.
And that community should, continue to grow and build alongside you in your career. Like you may change who you network with or spend as much time with as you evolve. But it's something that should take you through your entire career. And soon the mentee becomes the mentor and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be something that's lifelong, right? It's finding lifelong relationships, like-minded connections. And those do change as you change careers or, get more senior.
Yeah. And I think priorities are going to change and evolve. And it has for me, definitely, since I've started my career to now. I went to every single event that there was. Was the most uncomfortable things. Like, you end up going to the wrong event and you're sitting at a hearing of, that you don't need to be at. But that at the end of that, you end up, I remember going to one event and it was like the budget committee or something for the Chamber of Commerce. And like, I didn't need to be there. They were just pretty much like asking for people to vote.
You learned maybe that wasn't for you. That wasn't your alley, which is okay.
Well, and at the end of it, though, I spent 15 minutes talking to the mayor, a lead architect in the city. It was like, it ended up being the perfect event to go to. So yes, the hour and a half of my life, I'll never get back. But that 15 minutes, it was invaluable.
Yeah, you make good connections.
Yeah, and I think, you can really, if you're seeking something or you're just going with an open mind and kind of keeping your expectations low, you always exceed.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point too. Obviously, there's different personalities that come into play here. A lot of introverted people don't feel comfortable going to events. It's a little overwhelming, and it is. I would classify myself as more extroverted, but doesn't mean I don't get overwhelmed. I guess I've done it so many times, you get used to working a room. I'm also in a business development field, so this is kind of, my bread and butter to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're not made for introverts too. So, if you're someone that's more quiet off to the side, you can look still for people that are like you. You don't have to go up to a huge group. You can find just one person hiding out by the coffee station. That could be a really great connection. Or maybe you're just going to go, you're going to kind of just be on a sideline of a conversation. Maybe you exchange business cards. You can connect with people afterwards. Like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. And ABC, always be connecting. So every event that you go to, every class you take, every person you work with on a project in your company, a client, connect with them immediately on LinkedIn and send them a note about why you know them, because I promise you in 5 years you will forget and you'll need to know. But you can build those relationships individually, not at the event too, right? So the event just somehow just gets you exposed to a lot more people at once.
For sure. And you put a face to the name. I think, some of the events I've been to, I feel before that, these names that I heard of these massive people in the city, I never could imagine meeting them, shaking their hand, or, getting in touch with them, or finding out a little bit about them. And at these events, when, you have people like you speaking and kind of introducing yourself and making it a real thing and tangible, that was a massive takeaway for myself, and especially allowing it. Yeah, like I used to, I would say I'm an extrovert, but I'm very shy in the sense of like, meeting new people, and I get a bit overwhelmed. But yeah, it's an amazing journey for those people that are, looking to get started. You just got to start.
Yeah, you do. And also, don't be intimidated to go up to a speaker. A speaker's there because they have a message to share, and they're passionate about their topic, and they're excited. And like the worst feeling for them is like they give their presentation and nobody comes up and talks to them. They have the imposter syndrome too. They're not immune from it.
Yeah.
So like go up there, talk to them. They are surprisingly more open than you think. Every once in a while you get someone who's, thinks they're larger than life, but maybe it's a good reminder of what you don't want to be. That's okay too.
Yeah, and that is a great point. I've had a lot of mentors in my business career as well as my life, and you can have mentors for both reasons. Mentors that you aspire to be, and mentors that you see tidbits of that you're like, wow, I would never want to act like that, or that's something I would never take away. And I think that's just as important, especially as you kind of climb whatever ladder you're climbing. I would say being humble is a good opportunity, but also like, I always used to say, well, how does no one answer my phone calls? Right? Like, as early in my career, I was like, why does no one answer my phone calls? Like, I'm trying to give them business, or I'm trying to do their work. And then once I started becoming, very busy in my day-to-day life, I was like, oh, wow, now I don't have time. Right. So one of the things I took away was, okay, I don't have time, but I need to make my business available for everybody. So I need to put people in place to answer those phone calls or answer those questions. Can't always be me. Yeah. There is only 24 hours in a day, and I work most of them, but But
it's keeping that momentum up to grow your business. And you brought up a good point too, like for your career trajectory, whether you're an entrepreneur now or a corporate worker now, you may change at some point. Like there's a lot of people in corporate roles that over the pandemic were like, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm going to start my own side gig. So there's a lot of change that happens in different stages throughout your life. Mm-hmm. So it's always great to, build your network up for those. And one other thing I was going to mention about LinkedIn, don't be afraid to like meet somebody on LinkedIn. And what I mean by that, you can go create people that work at companies under certain roles. It's really easy to search and then like send them a message and ask to connect like over Zoom. It's, a low barrier. They don't have to physically go anywhere. You're not taking them out for coffee or lunch. So if you're, younger in your career and you can't afford it, that's a great way to solve for that, and just get 15 minutes of their time. Yeah. So that's the other thing is don't book hour-long meetings with people. Anybody, most people I would say in kind of like the mid to senior level roles don't have time for half an hour or hour-long meetings, but 15 minutes everybody can get you and give you. And then I promise you if the conversation's going well, they can probably book another follow-up meeting or extend it to 30 minutes. And then on your end, know what you want to talk to them about. Be like prepped and ready to know what you want to get out of this person. And then also just be conversational. You're building a relationship. Like don't be so transactional, right? And same with if you're looking for a job. People do business with people that they like. That still, exists. So be someone that people want to hang out with, and then it'll open a lot more doors.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And again, like, it's she's hitting it right on the head. So take in all this information. Whoever's listening, please. She's very correct in all her statements. I mean, we've used LinkedIn as a weapon that I never knew existed, and also like for other entrepreneurs that are in the space that you feel alone in your challenges. One of the tools that we've used on LinkedIn is start asking questions. Right. We do posts all the time asking a question. Hey, what books are you reading? What are your biggest challenges? What do you guys do for group benefits insurance? Like, you'll get some sales pitches, but at the end of the day, like when we were looking for a new marketing company, I put it out there. It was by far the best tool I could have done. I had 17 people come to me instead of me reaching out to 17 different people. We interviewed 17 marketing companies for our new website launch, and it was amazing to get the feedback, right? And then also it starts a conversation. So I think, take her advice, please, guys. She's crushing it on LinkedIn and every other social platform. So, that's amazing. Thank you.
Well, I am a big believer in LinkedIn for like business, right? That is what the platform purpose is. And I think a lot of people, again, are shy. I don't know what to post. I don't have anything to post. And this is what I teach, or this is what I try to promote at work. Post once a quarter. That's a pretty low commitment. Once a quarter. And once a quarter, it doesn't even have to be like origination of a post. You can reshare an event that's happening in your community, or with an organization that you enjoy, support, etc. You could reshare someone's article. So it's just like showing that you exist. You're sort of loosely defining, here's my interest or my expertise. As you build up your confidence, and then you can start to maybe share an article with key thing I learned from this article. But it's very low in terms of your commitment, and it does a lot for your reputation, and even just once a quarter. I know you hear like, I got to post 3 times a day. No, you don't. You don't want people to get sick of you also, right? Unless you're like a public speaker, or that's really your forte. You just want to keep relevant in your business community, and then the algorithm adapts to you as well. So if you start to have continuous posts about an industry, so Dan, in your case, if you post about plumbing, then you will be matched to more people that are looking for a plumbing company. So social media can be really great for helping you find your audiences.
Yeah.
But you need to have your content kind of going in that element as well. And then I always say do 3 things. So, pick 2 things that are maybe professionally related, and then you could have one that's maybe of a social interest. So maybe you support animals, or, maybe there's some social causes you really care about. That could be another great subject matter for you for LinkedIn posts.
Oh, that's great advice. Yeah. That's awesome, guys. You can be a person in business. I think a lot of people forget that, right? You have to be so on it all the time. I think everything going on with the pandemic, a lot of people are talking about health and mental health, and sharing some of the insights, especially as leaders, and people are looking to that. I found it as a great platform, especially the Bell Let's Talk Day. That was a great one to get out, and you see all other people's challenges and interests, and everybody's going through something. And entrepreneurs, for some reason, seem to be adding things to their plate constantly.
Can't help it. It's in your blood, right?
Yeah.
You just can't help it. You thrive on that sort of thing. So
how did you realize that you have an initial love for, communication and relationship building and the networking? Like, I know you said you were a little bit, timid to get into it, but, you seem so natural at it. So where did that passion come from?
And I think that part of the key is it comes naturally. Like, I feel very comfortable with it. But I would say, they always used to say to you, find your passion. And like, what does that mean? I hated that question. I didn't understand it. And again, I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so it took me a little while to find it. So how did I figure it out? And I'm also going to say it might change, but right now this is definitely what I'm passionate about. I started taking note of the types of tasks I would take on, and the types of projects, events, people that I would gravitate towards, right? Because you want to be around like-minded people. I want to be around this person. Why? What is it about them that I admire or wish that I had? And not in an unhealthy way, in a positive way too. Be careful of that. Watch out for Instagram in terms of all of the fake trash that's on there, but look for real people that you admire and that could be a good, healthy role model for you. And same with like the projects. So I seem to always navigate towards events, towards projects and initiatives that are people oriented, that have a bit of a social cause to them. And just by taking note of that over some time, I sort of realized that, actually I cared very deeply about this, and I'm good at it. So that's the other thing, is you also want to like judge, be real with yourself, and what's your skill set like? Like, can you actually do this job well? A lot of things, of course, you can learn, and I did go back and I went and got my master's, which I think really, really helped my communication skills, my writing skills. But for the most part, you got to kind of look at both of those things, and then talk to people. Like, what do people see in you? And I think that helped too, because people would be like, you're so good at this, and you're so good at this. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. And part of that is just, it may affect men too, but when you don't have good self-confidence, you don't see the good that you have to offer the world at all.
Yeah.
And one of it's a small thing, but people are like, oh, you're always so positive and you're always smiling. And, that's actually like a really good trait, to be in more of a public facing role. And when you're in a role to like meet with people, it's a good skill set to be positive and to always be smiling. So things like that, it could be really small talents or skill sets that you have, but actually might open a career path or an entrepreneurial path for you as well. So it's doing a lot of introspection and reflection, and then bouncing it off of people that you trust to try to get some ideas of, hey, what am I good at? And what do I like? And then it honestly does kind of figure it out. Once you put it out there to the universe that I want to figure this out, it will come to you. I promise. It just, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some than others.
Yeah.
I'm one of those.
Well, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think your point on asking others and actually like listening, becoming a good listener and understanding, okay, yeah, that has been said a couple times. And you know what? I am, proud that I'm always happy, right?
Yeah.
I do deal with problems well. And I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, especially if you want to excel, whether it's, your own business or within a company, the more problems you can handle is usually the higher level of importance you become, because they just keep getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, and don't assume that people okay, so for example, with a women's network, there's lots of other women's networks out there right now. I could easily say, well, I don't need to do this because someone else is already doing it. But you have a unique gift and you have a unique perspective. You will bring something different to the table than other people. And maybe I try this for a little while, it doesn't work out, or it's too much time, or who knows, and I pivot to something else. But I still have a different take on things, and I think that's worth trying. And so does, everybody else. Like if there's something that you want to try it.
Yeah, sure.
Like a lot of successful people say, fail fast. Then you can move on to the next thing and try that. Like many entrepreneurs that achieve success, they've had a whole bunch of businesses before them that were complete and utter failures.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong with that.
I think it's important, right? Like the amount of I could, you could write a book on all the failures that we've had, and I think it's just that, fail fast, which is, understand that it was a failure and move forward. The Denzel Washington quote was fall forward instead of always have a fallback plan. But yeah, I think that's fantastic. Like the big thing is, I think the takeaway is do it and try it, and sometimes get some insight. I mean, I have a unique history in terms of like putting that that energy out there, which was usually if you have a crazy idea and you tell 10 people and they all think you're crazy, or one thinks you're maybe do it usually means do it.
If one person says do it,
yeah. You're not looking for a consensus most of the time, because if you want to make an impact and want to make a change, usually it's something very unique, whether it's on a personal level or at scale. But that's been for me. I remember when I talked to my immediate family and friends about opening a company, the initial thought was absolutely not, Dan, like, you have a good job, what are you doing, you don't know anything about business.
Fear.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. Right. Like, and looking back, it wasn't that they were giving me bad advice. They were just concerned. They were just scared, and concerned about me, and didn't want me to, I was doing well, and they didn't want me to kind of, risk it all. So they were kind of more risk adverse. But I think, you need to find those people in your life that are going to be that number one and push you to that, push you to that I call them unicorns, but yeah, push you to that limit, but also support you along the way.
And I think that's a really good point. Like, your trusted advisor circle, if you rely on just friends and family, they have divested interest in you and your time. So while they want you to achieve their dreams, they still want you to be available for dinners, coming up for family, visits or babysitting or whatever the responsibilities. So they can't help it. They have some biases at play there. So you do need to expand your network. And when you're bouncing ideas off of them, remember, that's their perspective. Don't put your life in someone else's hands. They truly don't know. They're not living your life, and take ownership over what you want to do. And so what if you fail? Now, you might want to measure your risk. Like if you're investing in like some major bank into some project and, if it doesn't go well, you might lose it all. You might really want to do some strategic thinking and planning about if this is a good business venture. But for the most part, be careful who you entrust advice to. And again, advice is just advice. Filter it out. Keep what makes sense to you. Trust your gut.
Yeah. So in terms of a day-to-day, you've got a lot of things on the go. Let's talk, we've got a lot of questions on how do these people manage their day-to-day? And I think it's a very unique question. And we've had a lot of different answers on the show, but, walk us through what goes through your mind in terms of a planning process for, say, your day, your week, your month. And then also, like, when you were deciding, I know it's a pretty loaded question, but when you were deciding to get started with the Women's Network, did you do a time management analysis? That's a big word. Pretty much, did you see if you could, sleep less?
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you manage your time, and what are just some of the things that you could kind of give to the listeners as added bonuses?
Whew, that's a long question.
Yeah, it's long. I don't know.
So, okay,
Time management.
I'll talk about the Women's
simplify
Network
it.
and then I'll talk about a little bit broader. So, the Women's Network, it's very interesting how it kind of came out of. So, at the end of December, I was really burnt out. I was exhausted. I had been working crazy hours at my day job. I was feeling really burnt out in general. And I was like, I don't know if I need to have like a mental health break. Like, I don't know. And so I remember I was talking to my coach about it, and she's like, yeah, maybe you just need to relax over the holidays. I'm like, yeah, I got to relax. Okay. And then I had a few more conversations that week with some of my role models and mentors, and I was talking to them about them. And I brought up the Women's Network. I'm like, oh, yeah, the Women's Network. I still want to do that. And then it was like flip of the switch overnight. I'm like, yep, I'm doing it. I started building the website, building the social media channels. By the end of December, I had my business plan up and ready to go, and I was starting to book speakers and outreach for sponsors. And I was going to do this event pretty much in 2 months. It's coming up March 5th, and hopefully everything will be fine. It's coming together. But you know what? Once you put something out there and you decide that you're going to do it and you're committed to it, you will find the time. And then I felt like, why was I so tired in December? Sometimes you have to mix some passion projects into, some of the other work that you have going on to kind of reinvigorate you. And that's kind of what I did. In terms of a timeline, this is not a great piece of advice, but I know that I can do anything. I've really built that confidence up in me. Like if I set my mind to it, I can pull it off. Sometimes at the expense of my sanity, like I am going full force, but I also know that's the way I best function and operate. I thrive when I have a million and one things to do. You know what they say, like give something to a busy person and it will get done. That's definitely me. I also know at the end of a hard push, I crash for like 2 weeks and I need a 2-week break and I need to get away. And then I come back and I want to hit it super hard. And that's kind of the cycle of how I operate. That works really well for me. So me packing this on, it was actually really healthy for me. And now I wake up with a spring in my step and I'm excited to get started and I'm working until midnight every night. And, it's crazy, but there's not really a lot going on these days. I don't have a lot of social engagements to keep up with. So I also did factor that into my time management of like, what do I have going on? What would I be sacrificing? Yeah. Well, we're in a lockdown, so I can't see my friends or family anyways. I'm not great at sitting in front of the TV for hours on end. I need to do something.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's kind of how that works for me. That definitely advice would not work for everybody, but some people might be able to relate to that. When you have passion driving your time, we talked about this earlier, it doesn't feel like work. And I truly love it, and my heart is in it. So it really just gives me something to do. In terms of like my life and how I structure my time, so I work in a very busy job. I work at a law firm. It's very busy there. They work crazy hours. The expectation is that you're going to put in a lot of hours a week. My personality goes with that. So I'm okay to commit X amount of time to my job every week. And then outside of that, I look at what do I want to accomplish professionally this year. So I'm a big goal planner. So I love, New Year's resolutions, and I plot out my year and I plot it down to quarters. That's something I've newly developed. I'm like, okay, Q1, Q2, 3, 4. Like what do I want to get done so that I'm moving my big goals along. So I wanted to run the Women's Network. So what did I need to do? I need to have one event in Q1. The TV show was the thing that I did last year, and I wanted to keep moving that forward. I'm also TAing. I'm in the middle of selling my house. Like I have a million things on the go right now, but I function really well. And that's because in Q2, I hope to buy a new house, with my partner, my fiance. So really excited about that. But like, I find if I structure in goals, it helps me move them forward. And then I design my days, weeks around them. I'm definitely someone who does their to-do list every Friday. I don't mind working on the weekends, and most often I do, between all these different projects. And hopefully this doesn't sound overwhelming to those that are listening. I love this. I love all these projects. These are things I want to do. These aren't, things on my plate that I'm not very interested in. These are goals that I have that are really important to me. So it's easy to spend the time on them. It gets more difficult once the, restaurants and bars open back up and you got to fit time in for all those activities. But you know what? If it's important to you, you'll get it done and you'll make time for it. Some weeks you're working a little bit more. Other weeks you're relaxing and being a little bit more social.
For sure. I think it's just, again, guys, like anybody listening in, just showcasing the passion that Kristine obviously has for, her personal growth as well as other people's growth. Like, you know, peer mentorship is just such an incredible feeling. And anybody that's done it in the past, or, you know, whether it's coaching a sports team or, you know, another entrepreneur or someone in the office or, you know, wherever you are, someone in the field, it's a great feeling to kind of grow and grow together. And I think, you know, Kristine's a great example of that.
If I can share where that comes from a little bit, again, I grew up under a rock. I didn't have a lot of network or exposure to like the business world. So later in life, when I discovered, hey, you can run to be the mayor, you can be a CEO, you can go and get your master's. Like these were concepts that I didn't relate to when I was younger, and only in my late 20s that I really got to understand. I've become this sponge. We have so much opportunity, and I don't want to waste it. Because the first 25 years of my life, I didn't know these things were tangibly available to me. So once I discovered that they are, and like we're very lucky to live in Canada, Hamilton's a great city. There's so many different industries here. You can grab a piece of that and be a part of it. You know what I mean? Figure out what chunk you want and go after it and get it. Like how lucky are we? We're in the 1% that can do that. And that's something I don't take for granted. And that's probably a big driver for me, knowing that, hey, I can if I'm willing. So. That's
amazing. Such good advice. I'm fired up. I just want to get to work right now. So guys, Kristine's obviously got her event. It's coming up. It's going to be an amazing there. I'm going to be definitely attending. And just kind of the events going forward, I think, you know, giving back to an industry with a community, normally we talk about what are you doing in the community. I think we covered that. But yeah, Kristine is just one of a kind. And I think just a true inspiration to anyone, and definitely to a lot of the young entrepreneurs in Hamilton, male or female, in terms of what you can accomplish if you put your mind to it. And then a couple takeaways from today, guys, is find your passion. Find something that you love getting up for. I mean, you know, everybody has that challenge. Maybe I don't like getting out of bed, but it's once you're up, what's that feeling? What's that motivator? You know, we all have challenging days, but we want to talk about and get our minds thinking about what drives us, what's our long-term goals, and how do we get there? And if we don't have them, start asking other people, what are your goals? I mean, I was terrible at goal planning and goal setting, absolutely horrible. I didn't have any until I started talking to other people and said, what do you do? Right? And I think, Kristine would be a great example of what to do.
Well, and fill your buckets, right? It don't always have to be work-based. They can be passion, interest, family, friends, travel. Like you've got all these buckets in life. And Susan Jeffers has a great book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways.
Okay.
And I highly recommend that, just even from a goal perspective. And if you kind of look at all the different facets of your life, what do you want to do in all of them, right?
It's amazing. Well, guys, this has been episode 20 of the Guest Life podcast. All Kristine's social media stuff will be online in the bio. Kristine, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to have, such amazing talent to come on, especially local talent. And we want to always ask that question, guys. Why not me? Why not now? And think about that a little bit deeper and ask yourself those questions. Why wait? Why 6 months? Why a year from now? Make that first step. So you'll be able to get in touch with Kristine. If you guys have an opportunity, like and share us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the different platforms. We're really trying to grow our following in our network. And, local talent like Kristine is just, one of the many showcases of what is possible. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
You killed it. Thanks.